Well, just call me Patch Adams. Actually, that's not really accurate. I think Patch Adams is a doctor or a nurse or something. Anyway, uh, I busted out all that glass. Um, it did not come out, or I was not able to break it in any real. I tried to break it in some kind of uniform fashion. It just kind of broke where it wanted to break. Blah. English words. Let's use them properly. Okay, so piece of acrylic. I have this piece of acrylic on the back side, so the water pressure that builds up here will push it on, not try to push it off. It's not a real big deal with the silicone, but it's more of a lifetime thing. It just a way of thinking. If water pressure is pushing it on, it'll never break. The silicone will never break. Water pressure is constantly trying to push it off. Down the road, it could very well break. So I have that, and then just below it here, I have a patch piece on a crack that goes from here, I think, all the way down to the bottom. Now that's not going to keep my kaldness trap from leaking, because I'm pretty sure the crack goes all the way to the base. So the kaldness trap will leak. However, that crack is not going to allow water to leave the trap in a fashion when it's turned on, because that crack is just not going to be big enough. So this piece is almost acting like a staple or a suture. It's just kind of holding it together so the crack doesn't eventually start to work itself out. As well as this piece, it's all kind of just working together to make sure things don't get worse. As I said, when the water's just turned off, yes, it would eventually all leak to a specific level, which would be just below that patch piece of acrylic. But when the water's turned on, the amount of water flowing in and trying to flow out will not change the water level in the kaldness trap, because that crack is just not enough for that. And for those that aren't sure why I would bring that up or why that's important, in a system like, well, my first system here, let me go over to my prana tank, my beta test. Excuse me. With the way this system is set up, as the water evaporates, this water line will evaporate with it and just drain, and that ruins the flow. Eventually it'll get low enough to where it just won't flow at all. So that's something that you don't want to have happen. So when I went with this design, the water won't do that. The water will fill up this trap, and, well, before the crack, even if you turned off the system, the water would just sit here at this water line, because it'd fill up to the waterfall level, stop draining, and then just stay. So as the big part of this tank evaporated and the water level dropped, this would never drop, because it's just getting constantly filled up with the return pump flowing up and flowing in. So I would always have a consistent, constant current and flow in this trap. So that's why I bring that up. The crack will cause the water level to go down, but when the system's actually turned on and functioning, the crack just isn't enough to change the water level. Just because the water can't leak out fast enough. When the system's on, the water is leaking out through my gigantic waterfall, so the little crack isn't going to change that. Here's Rocket. desperately trying to get attention from me. But yep. So update. It looks like garbage. I guess, I mean, I'm not a glass worker at all, so I'm sure there's probably a way to properly drill and cut glass. I just took a wrench to it and bent it till it broke. That was my tactical way of doing this. So yeah, it looks like garbage. However, all I got to do is make one of these, rock formations, and then glue it on top of that, and you just wouldn't be able to see it anyway. So I wasn't worried about how it was going to look. Well, I will. I'm going to fill this thing back up with water. I've let the silicone sit for about, I don't know, 12 hours maybe. Typically with this silicone that I'm using, you really want it to sit for a week so it doesn't contaminate the water. But with the amount of water changes I'm going to be doing here in the next few days to get this system right, I'm not worried about it. And that toxicity is basically an issue with saltwater systems because they're so fragile. It's not a huge issue with freshwater unless you have like really sensitive, delicate freshwater fish, in which case I have none of that. I have air-breathing fish, I have turtles, that are breathing the air. For them drinking the water, that's not gonna hurt them any. So I am gonna fill it up here in just a minute and start drilling the holes to make sure I got the right water level. As I drill the holes, stuff's going to dump into the water, so that's what I mean. I'm going to be doing water changes throughout the whole course of this, so I'm not really worried about the silicone not sitting for a week. But just as a note, you would want the silicone to sit for an entire week before running a system. I just want to make that clear that, like, under normal circumstances, that's what I would do, and that's what I would recommend. So, alright guys, well, I will throw another video up here once I'm at the next step. Take care.